Okay, so this is section 3, how the people lived. Your essential question is, what was life like for South Carolinians in the royal colony? So basically this is asking us, what was the day-to-day life like for someone living in South Carolina, both in the low country, as far as the wealthy elite, and also in the upcountry as far as the Scots-Irish and the Pennsylvania Dutch small farmer, how they lived their lives. Okay, so these are the terms that you need to know. Apprentice, Dock Street Theater, and Great Awakening. A growing population. In South Carolina, not much population growth occurred from a natural increase. That means that basically as many people are dying as are being born during the 1700s. This is basically due to the environment because of all the diseases. You've got yellow fever, smallpox, and malaria that are running rampant. These are basically seasonal diseases, most of which are occurring during the summer and the hotter months because of the mosquitoes that carry disease, and and this just decimates large populations, especially by 1760. Many of the Cherokee and Catawba Indians, as well as soldiers in Charlestown, are killed off by smallpox. Okay, so what do we mean by golden age? Typically, when we talk about golden age, we are referring to the best of times. So what we're referring to here is Charlestown's best times during the colonial period. It began its golden age during the mid 18th century or the mid 1700s. It was one of the premier cities in all of America. It ranked up there with New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and it was also home to some of the wealthiest residents in the colony. Many of the people that lived in and around Charlestown were members of different clubs, and society promoted education, cultural activities. One group in particular, the Library Society, which was established in 1755, provided materials for reading, education, and new ideas. Homes during this time period were quite unique, and if you refer to the section in your textbook, you can actually see pictures of these single houses and double houses. They were narrow lots that were rather deep. This was done primarily to save money on taxes. You were taxed on the square footage of the first floor of your home. So this was a way for wealthy people to kind of cheat on their taxes a bit. But these deep lots allowed for smaller buildings for cooking, washing, and housing slaves and horses. They were furnished with the most ornate furniture. You know, the handrails on the staircases would have been carved out of solid pieces of oak, marble tile. Very, very luxurious homes for the time period. Okay, so let's talk education. Just like today, South Carolina ranked pretty low among the other 13 colonies as far as educating its people. It was assumed that parents would be responsible for education of the education of their children. There was no public education system during this time period in South Carolina, so if you were a child, the government would not pay for you to go to school. Your parents were responsible for that, and so in the Low Country, usually the wealthier folks would have private tutors come in and teach their boys and girls how to read and write and do basic math. And then, of course, the young men, when they reach a certain age, would be sent to England to further their education and go to college, essentially. Young ladies would not be expected to do this. They would, by this point, probably be getting married off And as we've talked about in class, their responsibilities in this time period weren't that great. They just needed to know proper etiquette, how to act during certain situations, uh, you know, how to plan parties and wear the right dresses and so on and so forth. And they weren't required to know much more than that. Again, another oddity amongst this time period is Eliza Lucas Pinckney. She was one of the few ladies or young ladies that actually got a chance to get an education. And I think this is in large part because her father probably felt like my daughter can do anything that a man can do. So, a very progressive ideals amongst the Lucas family. Children of white artisans would typically be placed as apprentices. This would take place for about a 7-year time period, and their parents would be responsible for paying for that training. So, if you were a blacksmith's son and you didn't want to be a blacksmith like your father, you could go and train to be, if you were more interested in being like a silversmith, you could go and train under a silversmith for 7 years. But again, your parents would have to pay for it, and you would literally go and live with this silversmith and train under this person to become a master at this skill. There was obviously more opportunity for education in the Low Country in Charlestown than in the Up Country. Again, we talked about this in class, but in the Up Country, they're just worried about getting uh, the knowledge that they need for farming. There's not really a need to know much more than that in the Up Country, as sad as that is. So, as a result, the majority of most Carolinians did not know how to read until nearly the end of the 1800s. So that's about 120 years ago. Most South Carolinians didn't know how to read. So it's a very sad state of affairs. So let's talk about fun, recreation. What did they do for fun? Well, South Carolina high society, or the wealthy, they wanted to enjoy life here and now. Their attitude was sort of like, you can't take it with you, so you might as well enjoy it while you're here. So they engaged in various activities. They would go to concerts, balls, operas. And especially in Charlestown, they would go to the Dock Street Theater and see the latest plays, or they would see performances of Shakespeare or the symphony or an opera. There was also in these clubs, men would sit around and drink and talk politics and the economy. They play billiard games or card games. Obviously, women wouldn't be allowed in these types of environments because it wouldn't be considered very ladylike. In the back country, it's very, very different. They took place in cockfighting, which is, again, it's sort of like UFC, but with roosters, and only one of them is going to come out alive. You place your bet on the rooster you think is going to win, and if your bird wins, you win some money. There was also bear baiting, horse racing, hunting, fishing, and fairs. So not a whole lot different than what life is like today. So just like many of you guys enjoy hunting and fishing. Religion. Obviously, the Christian religion is the most important one in South Carolina and really throughout the 13 colonies. Everybody, for the most part, is of the Christian beliefs. That's not to mean that they are not welcoming towards those of the Jewish faith. In fact, one of the first synagogues in North America was opened in Charlestown. Reading material typically was religious in nature. If it was not religious, then it would be practical books on agriculture, farming, and medicine that you would find in most homes throughout people that could read in South Carolina. So, for example, if you went to Brattonsville, you'll notice that in Colonel Bratton's home, you would find books about agriculture, farming, and also books on medicine. Because, quite frankly, outside of God, the other top subjects that you would need to know throughout the colony, whether you're in the upcountry or the low country, is the newest ways of farming, or the most appropriate ways to farm, and some of the best new medical practices. Herbal remedies would be another one. So that would be the most popular books And obviously in the Low Country, for folks that could afford other types of books, they would have, some classical literature as well. St. Philip's and St. Michael's Church were opened in Charlestown. They are both Anglican churches. Other areas also had churches. More denominations will be moving into the area with the Scots-Irish and the Pennsylvania Dutch. These include Presbyterians, Congregationalists, Baptists, Lutherans, Huguenots, Quakers, and Jews. Now, the Presbyterians, Congregationalists, Baptists, Lutherans, and Huguenots, along with the Quakers, they would be what the Charleston Society would consider dissenters or separatists. Remember that the majority of the white folks that lived in the Low Country were Anglican, whereas folks that lived in the back country were of these different denominations. This will become a problem later on when we're discussing taxes going to support the Anglican Church that people in the back country or up country are paying. The Great Awakening will occur during this time period as well, and this is really a religious fervor that goes throughout all 13 colonies, and it really causes there to be more churches to be opened, and people are on fire for Christ. It's sort of like a revival of the Christian faith, and we all start asking ourselves, well, why are we here? What's the great commandment or the great mission that God put us on? And that's to go and witness to others. There will actually be several Great Awakenings that will take place throughout American history. So this is the first.